And one more thing I want to incorporate. I'm going to introduce Ken Wolski, but Beresford and I were talking, and he would like me to introduce just an idea, which is that someone else had mentioned before about having more candidates, and the more candidates we have, the more likely we are to have a line of our own on the ballot. And Beresford had the idea, Beresford and I, that let's try to ask every active local to see if, please, they can come up with one candidate at least. The freeholder would be the best, because I think it hits the broadest number of people, but a U.S. Congress candidate would also apply to help us get that ballot line. So it's not a mandate, but if every active local could try very hard to come up with one candidate, it would help us a lot on the ballot. I want to introduce Ken Wolski. He's going to
Steve,
yeah.
And mentioned also that they don't have to actually actively run.
You guys are out of compliance with the elected.
Yes, that's right. Beresford rates. This year is a very special year because of the redistricting based on the census. Instead of even needing 100 signatures to get yourself on the ballot for Congress, I'm not sure about freeholder, but for Congress, 100 is not hard, but this year it's only 50.
Why? Why this year 50?
When they redistrict, they assume that maybe there's a learning curve about who's in what district. The parties don't quite know and the public doesn't quite know. And they give you a break every 10 years. So that this year, it's only 50 signatures. I mean, you know, you can do that alone by yourself in about 3 or 4 hours. And if you get a friend, you go out for 2 hours and get 50 signatures. You really want to get 80 or 90, so you're not challenged. But it's the simplest possible year, and it would help enormously for our presidential candidate and our Senate candidate and the party to have a line. So it's just out there, can't mandate it. Ken Wolski is going to relate to you his relevant bio information. But what I want to convey is like how fortunate I think we are that he came forward to run. And we're lucky for 2 reasons. First of all, the race for Senate is going to be the most prominent race in the state this year, and it would be a shame if the Green Party was lacking a candidate in that, with the exposure that you get from that race. But second of all, Ken is the kind of issue activist who I've always felt we should be reaching out to. I think it's a really key thing for us to try to get the Carol Gays, you know, and the Larry Hams and the Bennett Zorofskis, Cindy Zip of Clean Ocean Action. I mean, imagine we can get those people to run as Green Party candidates to convince them to go into the electoral arena. And here we've done it with Ken Wolski. And I think it should set a precedent. Thinking back, we did that with Madeline Hoffman. She came out of the environmental movement, and she was a terrific Green Party candidate, and others. Ken is based down in my county, Mercer County, and over the years, I had been watching him with admiration. He was making this progress, very steady, patient progress, over the last like 10 years in CMMNJ, Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey. And then he was successful. I mean, there's nothing better than to watch someone organize and then have a success in the end. I was very pleased when I learned that Ken had registered Green when we first had the ability to register, and then he started to attend our Green Party meetings and functions. And I was thrilled when he said he would step forward to enable us to have a candidate in the Senate race this year. Now, Ken is taking on to do the hard work of campaigning and cultivating the press, attending the street fairs, and filling out those darn questionnaires that you get you're going to get 20 or 30 questionnaires in August and September. Let's not make Ken collect all the signatures needed to get on the ballot in addition to all that. You, in your packets, you have, I think what people just have the page 1 and 2, and they have a single page of signature gathering. That's the first 10, right?
It's loose.
It's loose. Because what you really should do is download on the Division of Elections website. You can download the full petition. What you want to do then is take this page 1 and 2 and 3, no, page 1 and 2, because it's filled out properly for you already, and then staple on, in other words, what you print out from the Division of Elections, toss out, or from Acrobat, don't bother to print the first 2 pages. Use what's in your packet for the first 2 pages, but staple yourself together a full booklet. And then please go out and start to petition. These petitions, the presidential we were talking about before, don't get confused. That's due in on July 30th, but these Senate and Congress and freeholder petitions are due in on June 5th is primary day, okay? So essentially you have April and May. We all tend to procrastinate. See if you can kind of block your time to make it easy for yourself. But let's see how many people can set a goal of filling up a booklet. We're going to need a minimum for the Senate race. Again, it's 50 for Congress, real easy. But for the Senate race, it's 800 signatures threshold. And we ought to try to get double that so that we don't have any chance of being challenged. Ken and Nick tried to run a couple of years ago. They were given inaccurate information and on what their threshold was, and then they got more signatures than that, but because of the wrong information, they were challenged and they were not allowed to run. We don't want to take any chance in this high visibility race. We're going to shoot for 1,600 signatures. So if we can get some of us, I'll commit to taking a booklet and turning in 100, filling it up with 100 signatures. And we get lots of people to do that, then we're really in good shape.
Registered voters.
You need to, yes, it's any registered voter in the state of New Jersey can sign because it's a statewide office. Makes it a little easier for you than some local race where you have to know that the person's in a district. Any registered voter in New Jersey. Download the booklet, staple on this page 1 and 2, carry it in your car, carry it around with you wherever you go, and if you find yourself on some line at the, at the movie theater or anywhere that people gather or hang out, have your booklet and be having them sign.
The unemployment office.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Unemployment office. What we'll do, if you actually fill up a booklet with 100, you'll want to get it notarized. There's a page at the end. You're called the witness. You'll get it notarized and send it in to Ken. We'll be gathering. Until the point that you fill it up, keep going until the date of June 3rd, Sunday, June 3rd. We will have all day at Ken's house. We're going to have notaries available. We'll get together and anywhere in the state, come down to Ken's house with your booklet. You can get it notarized, and then we'll collect them all together on June 3rd, and we'll go into the Division of Elections on Monday, June 4th, to hand them in. If there's any problem, we still have a whole 24 hours to correct. Okay, be a little careful of which booklet you grab when you go to the website of the Division of Elections. There are primary booklets that say United States Senator, and ours have to say general election because we don't have primaries. We're petitioning to get our candidate on for the general election in November.
Steve, you're not saying less than 100 is unacceptable, right?
No, of course not. If you can only get 10, you can only get every single signature that you're able to get on a booklet and you can hand in to us is appreciated. If some of us will shoot for filling up a booklet with 100, it just makes everybody's life easier, and we always have some star, but we'll have to come up with some kind of a reward for our star petitioner to fill up a couple of booklets. I don't want to go on and on. One more thing. Please enable Ken to run a serious campaign by contributing to it. I think we raised about $10,000 for the Ted Glick campaign 10 years ago, and we were able to do quite a bit with that amount of money. I hope someday we're going to be able to say we can budget for a $100,000 U.S. Senate campaign. We're not going to do that. Let's see if we can raise $20,000 and be twice as effective as we were. We ran a great campaign, if you remember, for Ted, but that was 10 years ago. Let's try to raise $20,000 for Ken. And before you leave today, I hope you brought your checkbooks. See me, or I'll be treasurer of the campaign. See me or Ken to write out a check. Contribute, please, both money and time to what has the potential to become one of the really outstanding campaigns in our 16 years of organizational history. Let me introduce Ken Wolski.
Thank you so much, Steve. And I do have completed booklets. To save you the trouble of downloading it, I have about 20 booklets all filled out right there on my desk in front of me. You can just pick one up. But if you do take one, just let me know, so I'll know who's got them and who don't. Members of the Green Council and fellow Greens, I want to thank the Green Party for their endorsement of my candidacy for U.S. Senate in the November 2012 election. This is a wonderful opportunity to stand up for the values that the Green Parties endorse and to take a stand against social injustice and the perversion of democracy that is all too evident in our country today. First, let me tell you a little bit about myself and how I came to become a Green Party candidate. I was born in Trenton and lived almost my entire life in Central Jersey. I graduated from Trenton High School in 1966. I got a bachelor's degree in philosophy and a master's degree in public administration from Rutgers University. I worked in a steel mill in Roebling, New Jersey every summer to finance my undergraduate education, and I continued to work as a steel worker for about a year after I got my bachelor's degree. In 1973, I began my career in health care as an institutional attendant at Trenton Psychiatric Hospital. While I was working there full-time, I enrolled in the nursing program at Mercer County Community College, and I became a registered nurse in 1976. I've worked as a registered nurse in Pennsylvania and in New Jersey for the past 35 years. I've had a wide variety of clinical experiences. In addition to the psychiatric hospitals, I've worked in intensive care units and coronary care units. I was a public health nurse in Trenton, and I worked for 22 years in the state prison system. I retired from the state of New Jersey in 2006 after 25 years of service, and today, as Steve mentioned, I'm executive director of the Coalition for Medical Marijuana New Jersey. The Coalition is a nonprofit educational organization that I co-founded in 2003. In 1993, I had a life-changing experience while on vacation in Europe. In Amsterdam, I met a gentleman by the name of James Burton. Mr. Burton had just been released from an American prison, and as soon as he was released, he fled America, never to return. Mr. Burton had glaucoma, and no medicine was helping him. He was going blind, and several members of his family had already gone blind from this hereditary condition. When he was in his 30s, Mr. Burton tried marijuana for the first time, and he noticed an immediate improvement in his vision. His ophthalmologist recommended that he continue using the marijuana. Mr. Burton was a farmer, so he grew marijuana on his farm. The government found the marijuana growing there. They arrested him, they tried him, and they convicted him, despite the testimony of his ophthalmologist at his trial. Mr. Burton spent a year in prison, and part of that time in a maximum security prison. Now, coincidentally, I was working as a supervisor of nurses at New Jersey State Prison in Trenton, and that was, at the time, New Jersey's only maximum security prison. And I well knew the kind of mortifications and humiliations that inmates went through every day in a maximum security prison. But beyond that, for growing the marijuana to treat his vision, the government confiscated Mr. Burton's home and his farm. To me, this was the worst case of social injustice I had encountered, and I vowed to do something about it. I researched the issue and I found that Mr. Burton was just the tip of the iceberg. Legitimate patients were being victimized by the government all over the country. At my urging, the New Jersey State Nurses Association adopted a resolution in support of medical marijuana in 2003. And in 2004, the American Nurses Association adopted a similar resolution. Thank you. There are about 100,000 RNs in New Jersey and 3 million RNs in the United States. We are consistently voted the most trusted organization in the country, according to the Gallup polls. Medical marijuana legislation was introduced into the New Jersey legislature in 2005, and after 5 years of debate, it was signed into law in 2010. But we still don't have a working medical marijuana program. This is true despite the fact that 86% of New Jersey voters support medical marijuana, according to the latest Eagleton poll. In the entire United States Congress, not a single senator is a sponsor of a medical marijuana bill, despite the fact that over 70% of the American people support medical marijuana. Is it any wonder that the approval rating of Congress is under 10%? This is indicative of the great disconnect between elected officials in America and the American people. The political process in America is inherently corrupting because of its reliance on money. Senator Menendez spent $5 million in his last campaign. Senator Lautenberg spent $7 million. Politicians in America no longer represent the people of the United States. They represent their financial donors, and these financial donors are often special interests and corporations. This is why I registered to become a Green about 10 years ago. I respect and support all 10 key values of the Greens. But mostly I respect the fact that the Greens do not accept corporate donations. The Greens can't be bought. This is our strength, that we represent grassroots democracy. We will not be a government of the corporation, by the corporations, and for the corporations. We only represent the people of the United States. The Greens are about participatory democracy. We embrace diversity, we embrace feminism, we embrace all members of our community, including the homeless and the powerless. The opposite of participatory democracy is domination democracy, with the richest 1% dominating the other 99%. And this is what we have now, and this is what we must fight against. Today, I'm back living in Trenton, in the house my father built with his own hands in 1955. Trenton is a very different city today. The steel mill where I worked my way through college has been shut down for almost 40 years. The rubber mills are gone, the potteries are gone, nearly all the industry is gone. 25% of the city lives in poverty. One of the few industries that is thriving is the prison industrial complex. When I started working in the prison system, the state prison system in 1984, there were 8,000 inmates. When I retired in 2006, there were 27,000 inmates. And over 80% of the inmates were, and still are, Black and Hispanic. The explosion of the prison population in New Jersey was a result of the war on drugs. We are making our war on our own citizens in New Jersey. We are destroying our inner cities with this war on drugs. We are using the same mentality that we used in Vietnam. We must destroy the village in order to save it. Ladies and gentlemen, we do not have to destroy the inner cities of America to save them from drugs. The war on drugs is the most destructive policy this country has ever had. It is worse than the Vietnam War and Prohibition combined. We are spending billions of dollars in a misguided effort to stop drug use, and the result is that drugs are cheaper, more potent, and more plentiful than ever. We are creating poverty and second-class citizenship in the inner cities, and we are making the drug problem worse, not better. If you incarcerate a person with a drug problem, you only create more problems. Now the addict has a criminal record, which only makes it more difficult for him to find meaningful employment and rehabilitation. Inmates are brutalized in the prison system, and they are socialized to commit more crimes and more violent crimes. Plus, the family is disrupted, and children are left without the support and guidance of their parents. This only ensures that this problem will continue for generations to come. Meanwhile, society pays more each year to keep an inmate in prison than it would cost to send that person to an Ivy League college with full room and board. The drug problem can only be overcome the way the tobacco problem is being overcome, not by mass incarceration of nicotine addicts, but by imposing reasonable regulations and honest education about the dangers that are involved. Education that is free of drug war hysteria and government-funded misinformation. A vote for me is a vote to end the violence of the war on drugs. A vote for me is also a vote for free universal health care for all Americans. Our current health care system is something I know intimately as a registered nurse. It focuses far too much attention on profit and not enough on outcomes. The U.S. has the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and we are simply not getting what we are paying for. We need to expand a Medicare-like program to cover every American, not just those over 65. Healthcare is a right, not a privilege for the wealthy or those lucky enough, like myself, to be covered by some accident of employment. Right now, we already pay enough money to provide universal health care for everyone. But much of that money is going towards corporate profits. America needs to focus on preventive medicine. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We must stop our constant crisis management in health care. We must focus on improved outcomes for all Americans, and we will become a healthier and a better country for it. People might say, well, if you vote for a Green Party candidate, you're throwing your vote away. That's not true. You're investing your vote in a better New Jersey and a better America. And I'm asking you to invest your vote in me. Together we can bring about a world that is no longer at war with itself. Together we can bring about a world where health care is free and available to all Americans. Together we can bring about a world with a future focus on sustainability, a concern not just about our children, but about our children's children and generations to come. We can make a better world by following green principles. Thank you for your confidence and support.
Questions from the floor?
Steve.
And how do we make out the checks, please?
Thank you, Steve. Friends of Ken Wolski. Steve is my treasurer. They have, not only do we have the booklets that are prepared to gather signatures to get on the ballot, but we also have some campaign literature that's also available and freely available on my desk there. Friends of Ken Wolski. The address is 219 Woodside Avenue, and Steve Welser is treasurer.
Trenton, right?
Yep. Trenton, New Jersey, 08618.
Can I get that address, Ms. Bug?
219 Woodside Avenue. Should be in all your packets too. 219 Woodside Avenue.
We'll
in
save
Trenton.
you a stamp if you give us a check today. You are a treasurer. Yeah, right. That's my job.
Yes.
Ken, what do you think is the major weakness in Mr. Menendez?
The major weakness is that he's part of the political system that is inherently corrupting. He's part of the system that has corporate donors, and he does not respond to the wishes of the American people. He doesn't represent the American people.
Good answer.
Regarding, I know it's early, but future debates, what are the, can you tell us anything about the possibility that you could be included in debates?
I'm really not certain of the process for becoming included in debates. I would certainly welcome the whatever exposure we can get for Green Party principles and the issues that I'd like to bring attention to. Thank you.
Ken, no, wait. Ken, one of the biggest issues in New Jersey is jobs and the unemployment problem. What is your definition of a green job, and how can we create more green jobs in the Garden State?
Well, I listened to Jill Stein, and she said that I could steal some of her ideas. And, you know, I certainly would endorse her Green New Deal for America. That certainly is the kind of thoroughgoing effort I think that we need to really get us out of this problem. When she compared it to FDR's New Deal, I think that really is the kind of really robust program that we need to enact in order to come about with a solution to the unemployment problem. Now, yes.
I would like to encourage not only supporting Ken in regards to, he's running for U.S. Senate, of course, but I would also encourage people to come to Mercer County on the second Tuesday night of the month, where the Coalition for Medical Marijuana meets every month, and get involved. Governor Christie is dragging his feet in regards to implementing the law that has been passed by the people of this state. A lot of people are still suffering because of Governor Christie, and you know, the more people involved, the more we can get, you know, or the message out that people, you know, with multiple sclerosis, glaucoma, and other, you know, painful diseases need medical marijuana. One of the things that really brought it home for me was where there was a child of a person who was dying of cancer. The child was dying of cancer, terminal. Never did drugs before, you know, not a party kid or anything, but he was forced to break the law just before he died in order to get some relief from the pain and agony of chemo and all that. And it's outrageous that somebody who normally wouldn't venture to break the law is now forced, because of the state, to break the law, and that's got to end.
Thank you, Nick. I'd also like to mention that my colleague Kevin Zeese is organizing Occupy Washington, D.C. starting on March 30th. And when you look at some of the concerns of the Occupy movement, you find many similarities with the Green Party. They say one is get money out of politics, health care for all, protect the planet, human needs, not corporate greed, end corporate welfare, tax the rich and corporations, put workers before profits, and end the wars, bring the troops home. So I would urge people to support this movement, Occupy movement in D.C.
I was going to ask, what issues do you think the Republicans and Democrats are weakest on? And besides medical marijuana, what issues will you be stressing in particular?
Well, the health care for all is certainly one of the major issues, is ending the war on drugs, getting the money out of the politics, ending homophobia in all its manifestations.
Goes on and on.
Yeah. Really are a great many issues. And, you know, environmental issues. In 1992, when I got my master's degree, I wrote a thesis on recycling. That was 20 years ago. We looked at various programs in New Jersey and what made some work and others not work. And today I'm a proud owner of a 2011 Prius, and I get 50 miles to the gallon. I'm very proud of that. Doing my bit to decrease my carbon footprint. And you know, we need to look at alternatives to fossil fuels and nuclear fuels, the geothermal and thermal and solar alternatives, and wind alternatives. So these are the kind of things that I would urge.
I haven't heard a moratorium on foreclosures. Would that be part of the program?
I would certainly support that. I don't know enough about that to make a statement about it, but
The courts are beginning to turn around. These mortgages, these foreclosures are all illegal. 90% of them are illegal and challengeable. And it's kind of a hot battlefield now, and some of the courts are declaring the bank has assigned this mortgage so many times that we don't know who owns it. And no one has standing to enforce the mortgage. And some of these people are walking away with their home and no more money to pay. So the courts are beginning, I think we should take that up.
Sure.
And of course, Occupy is occupying foreclosed, abandoned homes, which is a great thing. You know, I think we need to be a little more confrontational and less electoral. And I think that would make us, this is why I like Occupy. I like what they're doing. I like the visibility of it. I like the tish-tosh nature of it. And as far as elections, as kind of a typical voter, I don't trust any of it anymore. I just don't trust it. If we got a good provision in there, or if we got a good person elected, he'd be assassinated. I'm pretty sure. I mean, they know now who killed Kennedy, but you haven't heard anything about it. The guys that did it came forth. We know that 9/11 was an inside job. We know that. And I don't hear that from, I guess I would prefer some open militancy so that people can see that you can challenge the system. And I think that would attract people, just as Occupy does. I don't think that you're going to do much with elections, frankly.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody agree?
I agree 100% with what you said, especially with JFK. And you're right, if Obama, you know, he wasn't going to do what he was going to do anyway. But if he had done what he said he was going to do, he would. I think they would have, you know, taken measures against him.
Oh,
They did that to JFK. There's an excellent book called JFK and the Unspeakable by James Douglas, and it
What's
lays
it
it all.
called?
JFK and the Unspeakable.
Interesting.
James Douglas. It's just a couple of years old, and it's an excellent book on the topic.
Read a book called Files on JFK, because James Files is one of the admitted assassins. They know who the assassins are, but you're not going to hear any more about it. You're going to let it lie.
Yes.
You know, I don't think it's like an either-or mutually exclusive thing between militant direct action and electoralism. I'm all for what you said, but then you're bound to want to bring that sentiment into the electoral arena too. And I think that a lot of people some people from the Occupy movement are going to say they don't care to go electoral, but some are certainly going to realize that that part of the game is to have candidates that speak the same message. And I think our job is to become the party that people turn to from the direct action. They do direct action, and they also want that in the electoral arena. And that's where the Green Party fits in.
I think you are poisoned by the fact that the process you're engaged in is electoral. It's peaceful, it's electoral, it's not out in the streets. And that's why Occupy draws me. And I'm a little disappointed in I think you are wonderful people, and you have a wonderful idea, but I don't think electrical politics is where it's at.
How many Greens are involved with their local Occupy groups? An awful lot of us are. A lot of us are. So it's
And I
not.
think
That's why I say
great.
it's not either or. It's both.
Except that I have to decide where to put my money and my time.
Just one comment. Ken's obviously very knowledgeable about his main issues, and looks like a fantastic candidate to me. When I run for Congress, I'm quite a different candidate than Ken. And if you want to see a fiery candidate that makes a fiery speech, and I don't wear a tie and all that, then you could come see when I run for something, and you'll see maybe the kind of candidate you look for. Because I believe that Occupy is fantastic. They did a great job of getting these ideas out in the public, far better than the Green Parties have been able to do. But I still also believe that the only way to change it is A, industry, and at the ballot box. Because I disagree with Chair Mao. I say the ballot is stronger than the bullet.
Certainly, I don't have any problem with it, and I mean, here I am. But I'm a Marxist, and I believe with Marx that the new systems will grow up in the bosom of the old when the old are no longer working. And I put it to you that the electoral process is a system that is no longer working, and the Occupy people are out in the street, not take, well, I guess some of them are taking. And no, I think what anybody can do is wonderful. But I think if we were out in the street, more visible, defying the rotten government, I think there would be more people here today.
Well, I certainly agree with many of the things that the Occupy movement is doing. I think that we do have the potential to fix nonviolently the political system that we have and that we've already acknowledged is broken. And we can fix this through grassroots democracy and some of the programs that we've outlined by not accepting corporate profits, by not allowing our elected officials to become bought and sold, and that's my plan for fixing the political system and the deficiencies that we now see in it. Certainly there is a role for direct action as long as it's nonviolent. I certainly support that, and I think that the Occupy movement has so many similarities, as I've already pointed out, to green principles, and they represent a great base of support for us. We need to tap into that energy and to motivate that energy to go to the ballot box, yes, to register and vote, and to continue on with this process, and to vote for green candidates.
Question is, I was wondering if you had a personal philosophy about what you think would be a better avenue for people. Prison obviously doesn't work for drug convictions. It just makes the problem much worse. So what would you like to see done society-wise that you think would be better for offenders and repeat offenders?
When we talk about ending the war on drugs, we talk about taxing and regulating drugs, making them available to Americans, adult Americans, and regulating them, making reasonable regulations for their use. Right now, there are no regulations for their use. They're all forbidden. So that process isn't working, and it hasn't worked for 40 years. So I'm sure that many states will come up with different ways of modifying this in different areas, and states are beginning to look at changing their approach to incarceration for drug use. So my approach would be a taxation and regulation model, substance abuse treatment on demand for everyone who wants it, and not for people who are forced into it by the prison, by the court systems, and by the schools because they happen to be unlucky enough to be caught with it.
I worked in drug rehab for over 14 years, and it's clear that the three words, is the solution to this: education, real education about drug, prevention, and treatment. Take all the billions of dollars on the drug war and put it into that, and problem solved. Treatment for those who want it, not forced treatment. Education, prevention, treatment, not incarceration, punishment, beatings, rapings, gangs. That's not working.
Yes, President.
We have to keep in mind that there's a dynamic that wasn't mentioned this evening, and that is the role that the federal government plays in not only distribution of drugs in the United States, but internationally. The Taliban almost totally eliminated drugs from Afghanistan. The United States took over. The CIA set up with the Northern Alliance, and now Afghanistan is the second largest producer of drugs in the world.
Yes, you're absolutely right on that.
Okay, and so America is a big distributor. Even as far back as the Nicaraguan war, they were carrying drugs back from Honduras in the planes that was bringing the weapons over to Honduras. And so the United States says that 90% of the drugs are entering the country. And why is that so? It's because the military is corrupt. 90% couldn't get into the country with the kind of Coast Guard and the kind of Navy we have if we didn't see it as helping the profiteers. It's all a corrupt criminal thing. So setting up laws, to make it easier for the average human being, or to make, don't stop putting people in jail and whatnot. It's a big business to bring drugs into the United States. You see, they want people to be corrupted and exposed and whatnot. They put the drugs on the streets.
Yes, and the drugs on the street are impure. They're far more dangerous than would be available if they were under a taxed and regulated system.
Exactly.
And the profits would be going to the community and not to some shady other people.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So it feeds
Thank
the
you. Right, exactly. Yes, Rich.
On Saturday morning, I listened to David Rothenberg. Anybody in the room know who I'm talking about? Okay, I'll give you some background. One? Okay.
That's it?
He's a theater promoter, and he's on WBAI Pacifica, non-commercial. He knows all about the prison industrial complex, and here is the image I remember him talking about one day. By the way, he's the founder of the Fortune Society, which is the #1 support group for prisoners coming out to help rehabilitate them in every way imaginable. If you get this resource and get the information from this site, it can be tremendous in answering the kind of questions that you've just had to deal with on this drug. Here's what I remember. David said a video documentary was made on the prison industrial complex in New York City, and here's the way it went. Couldn't get it on PBS. I wonder why. Here's what the revelations were. The police in New York City found that by targeting the blacks, the Latinos, and filling the prisons upstate in New York, all the statistics on the crime in New York City went down. Meanwhile, federal funds were coming from the government for parks and highways and lifetime career opportunities for people running the prisons. And boy, were they trying to keep those prisons full. David went on and on and on, and if you just hear him 1 week, I think you'll be hooked and spread the word and say, hey, people should know somebody's trying to do something positive about knocking off these Rockefeller drug laws that have put all these low-level people in prison for nothing. And then they come out and try to get a job. And the other thing David said was the families who tried to keep in touch with their family member that was in prison were charged exorbitant telephone fees just to talk for 5 minutes. These were all crimes against humanity. And as best when I called PBS and I said, why hasn't that program been on? Will you see that program gets on so the public can find out what's going on? I never heard from them, but anyway.
Tell us again the name.
There's a resource for
Tell us
you.
again the name of it, Rich.
David Rothenberg.
Fortune Society.
And it's the Fortune Society. It's uptown in Manhattan. I'm going to guess it's the main building there is like 150th Street, or it's up in Harlem section, up in that way.
He's on I guess he's on 8 o'clock now. I heard him this morning. He's on 8 o'clock on BAI on Saturday.
From 8 to 10, thank you, in the morning on WBAI 99.5 FM.
Thank you. Yes.
I want to say something about why we should vote. A lot of people are getting discouraged and bitter and jaded and saying, politics is so corrupt, I'm not going to vote anymore. And we heard some of that today. It can be very depressing, and you start to feel hopeless, and you just give up. But other countries haven't given up. The Green Party is growing like crazy around the world. In Germany, the Green Party is really big. They get 20, 30, and more % of the vote. In England, in Canada, the Green Party is becoming more and more powerful every year. So why should we give up? They didn't give up. Let's keep voting. And vote with your conscience. Vote with integrity. It's not a horse race. You don't vote for who you think is going to win. You vote for who you think is the best candidate. They did it. Why can't we do it in America?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good. Thank you. The very first time I encountered the Green Party was in Europe. I believe it was 1978, and I came back with 2 stickers. One had a nuclear explosion, a vision of an image of a nuclear explosion with a red line through it. From the Green Party. The other one had a image of McDonald's with a red line through it, and they were both from the Green Party. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Ken Wolski. Senator Wolski. Well, we're winding down here, and we're next going to hear closing remarks by the new chair, Bill Ryder. So you can have to continue talking now. Yeah.